Welcome. My name is Earl Amin, and you're listening to the 2020 Foresight Podcast, where CEOs, presidents, and leaders of small to global companies share their insights. It is 6 questions in 9 minutes because leadership knows how to listen and be concise. So let's get to it. First of all, welcome. And in just a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Dr. Mark Goulston. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Michelangelo Mindset. And companies bring us in when they want to see into their future and make it happen the way Michelangelo could look into a piece of marble and see the angel and set it free.
Well said. Well said. Great visual. So, what's the best thing about being the CEO of your company and doing what you do?
Well, I get to immerse people in a way of looking out at the world through different eyes. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And for instance, Michelangelo Mindset, if you're a CEO, what you realize is that inside every customer or client is someone who wants to buy from you. Inside every investor is someone who wants to give you their money. Inside every talented person you want to come to your work for you is someone who wants to work for you. You just have to clear away everything that gets in the way of that.
Yes. Yes. Simple, but not simple. Yes, indeed. Now, I'm sure, Mark, in your journey, you've heard, as I have, from other leaders that leading a team can be challenging, but when you add having to look around the corner and see what lies ahead, that too can be a challenge. What are your thoughts?
Those are all challenging, and what I'm trying to teach the world, and I gave a main talk along with a Nobel Prize winner in Moscow, Daniel Kahneman. He wrote Thinking Fast and Slow, and I was the other main speaker, and I'm doing my best to teach the world to realize that whoever you're with, including you, Earl, right now, inside someone listening to you is someone listening for something. And if you can tune into what they're listening for, they lean toward you. So I'm guessing that you're listening to me, but what you're listening for the purpose of your listeners, is information that is relevant to them, clear, concise, and immediately doable. Because if your guests like me can offer that, then you're giving your viewers and listeners value.
That's excellent and insightful. Thank you for that. Well, and relevant to insight, what particular piece of insight would you like to share with and for the benefit of other leaders, CEOs?
Well, I have an article out in a magazine called Real Leaders. You can find it in the airports, and it's called Michelangelo Leadership. And when I work with leaders, I only work with leaders that want to follow what's in that article. And Michelangelo Leadership means that if you look out at your people, inside them is a deep desire to trust you, have confidence in you, feel safe with you, respect you, admire, like, and be inspired by you. And if you're the opposite of this, they're not going to want much to do with you. And I only work with people who want to grow into that kind of leader. And in the article, what we talk about is the observable behaviors that if you do these and you check on yourself how well you did at every presentation, it'll result in a leader that looks that way. And those observable behaviors are, you need to be unflappable, but present, not robotic. You need to be taking charge without being controlling in a crisis. You ease off when you're not in a crisis. You need to be knowledgeable versus shooting from the hip. You need to be wise, meaning you focus on what's important and have a way of not focusing on what's unimportant. You need to have a sense of humor about yourself. If you come off as too serious, it doesn't work. And you need to be gracious and humble. And when I work with people, I say, how'd you do in all of those categories? And it won't surprise you that many of them are working on the humble part.
You're right. It wouldn't surprise me. Well, tell me, addition of that wisdom, in your journey, what other successful CEOs, leaders like yourself, would you like to acknowledge or give a shout out to and should be on my podcast?
Well, I would, I have something I call the Dead Mentor Society, and they should all be on your podcast, but unfortunately they're dead. My last one was Larry King, and before him was a leadership fellow named Warren Bennis. Someone who I think the world of, but I don't know him that well yet, is Alan Mulally. Alan Mulally was the CEO of Boeing, and I'm a Marshall Goldsmith 100 coach, and Marshall just thinks the world of Alan, and I'll tell you concisely why. Alan went from Boeing to Ford, and Alan has a process which I think he calls red, yellow, green, and he met with the executive team, and he said at Ford, "How are we doing?" And they said, "Oh, it's all green." And he said, "Really? We lost $10.5 billion last year." And so one person raised their hand and said, "Red, we don't know what we're doing." And so what Alan did is he said, "I don't know anything about cars. I'm from Boeing, but there's got to be someone at Ford who does. Let's just go find them and see what they have to say." So don't have to be the smartest person in the room. Know what's necessary for success. And also, you want to be a generalist. A good friend of mine, Peter Samuelson, partnered with General Norman Schwarzkopf, and they did the Starlight and Starbright Foundation. And General Schwarzkopf asked Peter, "Do you know what a general is?" And Peter said, "No." He said, "When you become a general, you have to take off all your specialty pins because you're a generalist. If you came from tanks, you came from infantry, you have to take that all off, because when you're a general or when you're a CEO, you can't come from your area of specialty. What needs to lead you is the mission, and you don't want to downplay the areas that you have little confidence in because you need them to succeed."
Well said. Well said. Well, now for the final question. How do you celebrate a win?
I'm in a reflective stage of my life. I look pretty good, but I'm in my 70s. And the way I celebrate it is I basically say, "God, thank you for letting me contribute to leaving the world better than I found it."
Indeed. It's a pleasure having you on today, Mark. How can people find you?
They can go to michelangelomindset.com. They can find me on LinkedIn, which is pretty current. And I have a personal website, markgoulston.com. And I have a podcast called My Wake Up Call, which is fairly robust. I have 240 episodes, and I've had people like Larry King, Doug Conant, Ken Blanchard, Jordan Peterson, Esther Wojcicki, Tom Steyer, many more. And my podcast is I ask people, what is your purpose and calling that you think will be your purpose and calling at the end of your life? And share with us your origin story and the wake-up calls that led you there. So let me ask you, Earl, with one question. What's your purpose and calling?
My purpose and calling is to love and to serve. That's it.
It comes across. Thank you, Earl.
Thank you. This is Earl Amin with the 2020 Foresight Podcast. For more insights, go to LinkedIn and search for The Gray Owl Company. Mark, profound thanks.
Thank you.
From one dynamic CEO to another, from one impactful company to another, up next is an equally great leader worthy to be listened to. First of all, welcome. And in just a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you, Earl, for the nice welcome. My name's Mischelle Saunders-Gottsch, and I'm the CEO and founder of a faith-based nonprofit in Overland Park, Kansas called Altered Stories Ministry. We help Christian women share their God stories so women around the world can hear them. And we are a startup. In addition, I am the chief storyteller host of the Altered Stories show, and we host the women's stories on the podcast.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Wow. That's quite the mission. What's the best thing about being the CEO of such an extraordinary mission?
I think making a difference in the world, doing something that I believe matters and that makes a difference in terms of women's healing and giving women a voice and a platform to share. In addition, I like having the opportunity to help those women that hear the story heal and be transformed from the stories that are being shared.
Outstanding. It's beautiful. Now, I'm sure you've heard this, because I certainly have, that being the leader of a team and needing to see what lies ahead can often be a challenge. What are your thoughts?
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Especially when you go through, like we have a major pandemic and trying to still be relevant in the market and be able to identify trends and indicators and the ever changing, circumstances that you have to lead and manage around. And that in itself is very difficult. And that's just one scenario.
Yes, indeed. Well, from that, what key piece of insight do you want to share with and for the benefit of other CEOs, other leaders?
Yeah, there's so much, and there's so many incredible, gifted CEO leaders out there. I admire so many of them, and I am so honored to be just in the circle, even though I'm a very small, in a small little startup. But I will say, you have to persevere, and you have to live your truth, and you have to never go off your mission. Never go off your mission, whatever you do in terms of stewardship and decision-making. And all of that has to really come around your mission. And as a nonprofit founder, mission and moving mission is critical.
Wow. I'm in certain agreement with that. Now, as you're moving through that evolution, maintaining focus on your mission, what other successful CEOs, leaders like yourself, would you like to acknowledge or give a shout out to and should be on my podcast?
Oh my goodness. There's two right off the bat I would love to shout out. The first one is why you and I are connected today. And his name is Chad Burmeister, and he is the CEO and founder of ScaleX.ai. And he also is the podcast host of Living a Better Story. His reaching out and his desire to give back is truly what helped frame my campaign and what I'm doing in going around and sharing now with others this story of what brought me to Altered Stories Ministry. The other person, he is awesome, is Brian Shulman. He's the founder and CEO of Voice Your Vibe, and he is very relevant out on LinkedIn. He is a Forbes entrepreneur. He's a best-selling author, author, and he has, oh my goodness, such incredible energy. And he does such great work in highlighting and bringing in positivity into the world. Really recommend him too.
Outstanding. Well, we received both of those. Thank you very much. Now, Mischelle, for the final question, how do you celebrate a win?
Wow. We do public celebrations. We get out there and we invite those that have been instrumental in helping us, because we are a nonprofit and because we rely on donations and those volunteers. We want to embrace all of those folks who've come alongside us. So we typically do a public celebration. If we can do it locally, we will, an in-person event, or we will sometimes do shout outs and all those things within the virtual communities.
Very good. Very good. Well, Mischelle, it's been such a pleasure having you on today. Tell us, how can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm out there. I have a great presence. I'm also available I have a public image page out there on Facebook and my own personal Facebook. We've got Facebook groups and Instagram we're out there on. So, and my website, www.alteredstories.org, and my podcast show, Altered Stories Show. You can find me all out there in a lot of different platforms.
Awesome. This is Earl Amin with the 2020 Foresight Podcast. For more insights, go to LinkedIn and search for The Gray Owl Company. Mischelle, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the 2020 Foresight Podcast, where CEOs share who they are and what they do in the world that makes a difference. For more entrepreneurial and life-changing insights, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes accounts. All of the links are available below. See you in the next episode.